I read a report on Boxing News 24 forum, good forum, that was linked to the ESPN website, and apparently there are rumours / discussions that Canelo Cotto will now fight in June, early to mid-June, as opposed to in May. It seems that there may be some flexibility with Canelo in terms of whether he wants to fight on May 2nd, Cinco de Mayo weekend, or whether, he would push the date back. In my opinion, this is very, very sensible. First things first, if Mayweather fights Pacquiao, which seems to be the favourite at present, you're looking at that potentially being the biggest fight of all time. And I mean that. In terms of the money that will generate, the interest, the pay-per-view buys, its place in history. I do think Mayweather Pacquiao has the potential to be the biggest fight ever, and surpass all that's gone before it. Now, Miguel Cotto, Canelo Alvarez are both very, very good fighters. For me, more importantly than that, they're also very, very big draws. In fact, I would go as far as to say they're better draws than they are fighters. That fight is a big fight. I could see that fight, if promoted correctly, with appropriate build-up, doing anywhere from $750,000 through to $1 million pay-per-view buys. Both of these guys have been on pay-per-view before. Both of them have huge fan bases. It's the Mexican-Puerto Rican rivalry. It's going to be a very, very big money fight. But let's not forget, both of these guys have had an opportunity to fight Floyd Mayweather. Both of these guys have had an opportunity to defeat the pound-for-pound number one in the sport. On both occasions, Mayweather fought outside probably of his ideal weight class in order to meet with these guys. My point is, both of these guys had the opportunity to be the man, to be the number one in boxing, and both of them failed. Canelo, in my opinion, failed particularly badly, losing pretty much every round in a very one-sided fight to Floyd Mayweather. Now, I personally didn't like Canelo saying he was going to take the dates back. I understand Cinco de Mayo is a Mexican holiday. I'm based in the UK. It's not something that we celebrate over here. But let's be honest. Cinco de Mayo weekend previously, it's not, from what I've seen in the UK, it's not about what country you come from. It's not about, what racial group or nationality your fans are. It's just a great weekend for boxing. And, we've seen occasions before where, like, Floyd has fought Maidana, an American versus an Argentinian on Cinco de Mayo, and it's been massive. You've seen all the Mexican fans turn up. You've seen them absolutely loving it. For me, this is bigger than simply what nationality you are. And I thought it was foolish of Canelo to try and try and compete with Floyd Mayweather on the same night. For me, that's a fight he can never, ever win. Perhaps, had he performed with more credit when they fought, he could have competed. But with the one-sided nature of that fight, who are fans? I appreciate Canelo's got a big following, but who is the average boxing fan going to tune in to see? Floyd Mayweather, or two guys fighting who Floyd Mayweather's beaten? For me, it's a no-brainer. We also need to factor in that with Mayweather Pacquiao potentially looming, even the hardcore Mexican fans, or the hardcore Puerto Rican fans, are very possibly going to be tuning into Mayweather Pacquiao. Because what we must remember is, It doesn't matter if they're Mexicans. It doesn't matter where they're from. Fundamentally, these guys are boxing fans. They want to see the big fights, the best fights in the sports. You know, I'm from the UK. What would I rather watch? Mayweather Pacquiao, or a UK fight? I don't know. If we took two UK fighters in the same division, well, for me, Mayweather Pacquiao is a bit above the nationality of fans. This is a historical event. This is one of the biggest fights of all time. This is a fight that will generate more hype, more money, more promotion than anything the sport has ever seen before, in my opinion. And for Canelo to try and compete with that was not only arrogant, but also quite foolish. I think if he fights in June, I still don't think that's ideal, because I think potentially boxing fans will have spent a lot of money paying out for a Mayweather Pacquiao pay-per-view in May, and it might hurt the bank balances of fighters too much, of fight fans too much to pay out for, Canelo Cotto the month after. So I still don't think it's ideal, but it's certainly going to create more buys than if you competed with Floyd. And let me just say Floyd doesn't fight Manny Pacquiao. Let's say he fights Amir Khan. Let's say he fights Danny Garcia. Let's say he fights Kell Brook. I still think Floyd wins the battle of pay-per-view numbers against Canelo Cotto. As I say, Canelo Cotto are two big fan favourites. But let's be honest, these guys, nobody's got Canelo and Cotto in their top 5 pound for pound lists. Nobody's got these guys. Very few people would consider Miguel Cotto the top middleweight in the world. Very few people. My point is that this is it's a matchup between two very popular fighters who are at the top of the sport skill-wise, but who are not the top of the sport skill-wise. Floyd Mayweather against an unbeaten opponent like Danny Garcia, like Kell Brook, it's more significant. And I think Floyd always wins that battle. But I do think Canelo Cotto is a good fight, and I do think it's a fight that can do well. So I hope that these rumours are proved true, and I hope that that fight is moved to June. For me, that fight won't be a significant moment if it's on the same night as Floyd Mayweather. The only possible exception to that would be if there was some mega pay-per-view which included both fighters. For example, for both fights, I'm told that the average pay-per-view in the States is $70. I'm told when Floyd fights it's usually $75. Perhaps you could have two different arenas so that the gate prices, gate receipts, ticket sales aren't affected, and you could have two relatively stacked undercards. You then cut between the two arenas for the big fights, and you make the pay-per-view considerably higher. I mean, I read one person say it would have to be something like $200 in order to justify it financially. So, how realistic that is, and how realistic that both guys could fight on the same pay-per-view anyway due to boxing politics, my guess is it's very, very unlikely, and I very much doubt that that would happen. But what I would say is, on the basis that that doesn't happen, Canelo's got to back down here. Miguel Cotto may not even want to fight him if it's on May the 2nd, because Miguel Cotto may be very mindful that the PPV sales will be very low should that mega fight be made. I think it's better for all involved. Better for boxing, better for Canelo, better for Cotto, better for Floyd, better for Pacquiao if Canelo fights June. Let me know your thoughts on this one.